Today I'm going to share with you the day I got properly scammed. Well, as you may know, my Audi is broken down, so that's in town at the workshop, waiting to go to the garage when the garage opens for the new year after being closed down. My father is away in Taronga at the new workshop with the ute today, so I am stuck in the house. I was editing yesterday's vlog video this morning, but that's finished and uploaded now. So right now I am making a coffee, walking around the house, waiting for it to brew, really. So, how I got scammed. Now, I will say that this isn't some major scam or some crazy amount of money or anything like that. But it was the first time that I really, you know, I'll just tell the story. When I was around 20 years old, something like that, I was in my second year of university and decided to buy a motocross bike. I decided to get one, and my uncle, who I was fairly close with, decided to get one. We were going to get them together. He's quite a number of years older than I, but we thought it would be good fun. Now, I was in university down on the mainland. I'm originally from the Shetland Isles, which is a small island, not much choice in motocross bikes. So I had the sort of mainland of Scotland and access to various bikes second hand. So I started looking at bikes and adverts and magazines and newspapers, trying to find two bikes. Eventually came across a bike which I went to have a look at, purchased with cash, and took it back to where I was staying, and that was fine. The second bike I went to have a look at, took cash with me because I had the intention of buying it if it was good. So knocked on the guy's house, went to his garage, looked at the bike, it looked fine, checked various things on it, sort of things I knew to check at least. And he wanted something like £1,500 for it. And I sort of haggle, always haggling, so I haggled him down to something like 1,400, and he said, okay. So I had 1,300 in one pocket in case I got him down to £1,300. I had 100 in another pocket, 100 in another pocket, and I think I maybe had an extra 100 or whatever in the car, can't quite remember. I took the £1,400, handed it to him, I said, check that over. And because I was nervous about the whole situation, and I didn't want to be like looking at him, counting my money essentially, I kind of like looked around his garage and just kind of looked at his shelves and sort of kept my eyes away because I didn't want to, felt like weird just looking at him counting money. So remember, I had given him £1,400. So while I was looking around at his shelves and around the garage, I heard him say in the background, there's only 1,300 here. And my immediate gut reaction was, and I went into a sort of denial where I was just like, oh, maybe it wasn't right. Maybe there really was only 1,300. But I knew in my gut, I knew there was 1,400. And so I checked the money and I said to him, oh, they must have counted it wrong at the bank, or I must have counted it wrong. And even though I knew that what he'd done, and there's the only thing he could have done, or safely done, is he had like baggy trousers. He would have just taken 100 and just gone, popped them down his trousers. For sure, I mean, there's nowhere else it could really be. He wouldn't have turned around and hid in the garage because I was kind of there. He would have just quickly done it because, like I said, I was facing the other way. So I had two choices in that moment, and I remember thinking, I've got two choices here. I either say, okay, no, look, I don't have any more money, that's it. Just give me that 1,300 back and I'll leave. Or I could give him another 100, which means I was paying 1,500 for the bike anyway. So I either cut my losses and leave, or I pay 1,500 for the bike rather than the 1,400. Because I did give him 1,400, he just took 100 and hid it away, and so I'd have to give him another 100. So independent of letting myself get scammed by this guy, I thought, if I don't get this bike, I'll have to keep searching again. It seemed a good bike. I was willing to pay 1,500 anyway. It just so happens I haggled them down to 1,400, and then, you know, I let them scam me. But I still would have paid 1,500 originally. So I tried to look at it objectively, and I just went out to the car and, you know, I found another 100 in the car, in the glove compartment, and gave that to him, and, you know, it was fine. But it was kind of depressing. But it gets even more depressing. Do you want to hear the rest of it? Okay. This was the bike I was buying on behalf of my uncle, who was still up in the Shetland Isles. And I told someone what had happened. Like, I told someone what had happened to me, and this person said, hey, you were buying it for him. He should pay half that cost. And I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe he should. I phoned my uncle. I said, hey, I bought a bike, but I ended up getting scammed out of £100. So instead of your bike being 1,400, it's actually 1,500, and, you know, I'll pay 50 of that $100 I got scammed by, and you pay 50. And thankfully, he didn't really say anything. He just kind of went, well, kind of didn't really agree to it. And then I can't remember what happened. We sort of hung up on the phone, and I talked to someone, I think it was my mom, and she said, no, like, that's your fault. Like, that's you. I mean, I think what she wanted to say was, Magnus, you were the idiot. You lost the 100. Your uncle doesn't pay any of that. And I was just like, she's right. Like. So I phoned my uncle back, only like, I think half an hour or an hour after I first spoke to him, you know, asking him to pay half of my, you know, ridiculous mistake. And my memories now, sort of 12, 13 years later, they're so vivid of that, you know, just my ego taking a hit, and just me having to phone up and say, you know, I shouldn't have asked you for that. That was really ridiculous of me to ask you to pay for my mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. And, you know, I felt relief on the call. I mean, it feels like such a minor thing now to talk about it and to think back on it, but back then it was, you know, I'd led such a sheltered, safe life. It was like, it was the biggest thing that ever happened to me. It felt like that at the time. But what felt good was that I thought I might have alienated my uncle, or really sort of lost something, because, you know, of asking for such a ridiculous thing. And what I'm not sure about even now is why I thought of asking him to pay for that mistake. Perhaps I felt so foolish and so ashamed of letting myself get scammed in such a ridiculous way, that, you know, like, I wanted someone else to sort of kind of half take the blame for it. Maybe if my uncle paid for half of the mistake, you know, it wasn't entirely mine. I'm not sure, but it was a real learning experience for me. It certainly paved the way, sort of, for things later on in life. There's been times in my life since then where I've screwed up monumentally. Not that many times, but I've screwed up, and I've been able to just sort of go to the person that I screwed up with and just say, hey, look, I really screwed up and I was wrong and this. And every single time I've done it, not a lot of times it's actually happened to me, but every time I've done it, it's been the right thing to do, and things have worked out. And so, you know, like, it's one of those things, like, nothing ever really bad happens. There's always sort of, you know, there's always like something you learn from it. I think that's maybe the lesson there, if there is a lesson. And with that, I will leave you with a quote that is somewhat related. It's by Albert Einstein, and he said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value."